The poor and middle class own everything and control nothing, but the rich own nothing but control everything.
Have you ever wondered how the wealthy seem to keep growing their money, paying no taxes, and seemingly don't own anything on paper? It's not magic, it's strategy. And in today's video, I'm gonna be breaking down how the wealthy use trust to protect their assets, grow their wealth, and pass down their fortune to their children and heirs. I'm Higgins, your real estate and personal finance guide, and the goal of the channel is to help you master your finances and create generational wealth. Let's get into it.
In the United States, we are a very litigious society.
They sue all the time.
All the time. They did a survey in the state of Louisiana. They asked the people, how are you going to get rich? The first way to get rich was winning the lottery, right? The second way to get rich was the litigation lottery, to sue someone.
So what is a trust anyway? A trust is a legal structure where a trustee holds assets on behalf of the beneficiaries. And in simple terms, the trust is creating a layer between the person who is funding the trust and the assets inside of the trust. So you might be thinking, why not just use an LLC or an S Corp to protect my assets? And the reason is, if you have a skilled legal team coming after you and your assets, they can pierce the corporate veil. So they can prove that there's an inadequate separation between you and your assets that are in an LLC or an S Corp. And they can actually go after those assets, even though they're not technically in your name. And this doesn't happen all the time, but as you accumulate more and more wealth, you get a bigger and bigger target on your back. That LLC is like a door. And if you have a skilled legal team, they will go right through it. But a trust structured correctly is like a vault. There's so many layers of protection there with the security guards and the cameras and the doors and the vault itself that no one will be able to access your finances.
Yeah, it's like you have a car, but you don't have car insurance.
Right.
So you get in a wreck. Well, you can't buy insurance after you're in a wreck. And the same as you have a house. You can't buy insurance after the house burns down. So the reason it's very important for advanced millennial money is to know what you have to do before you get rich.
Trusts don't make sense for most people, and there will be a lot of people on your wealth journey who will try and sell you on very complex organizational structures for your finances before you're actually ready. But it still can be very instructive to learn about these advanced trust structures so they don't try and sell you products that you don't need before you're at that point in your financial journey. So what is the biggest problem that trusts are trying to solve? So if you have a will, that will has to go through probate court in order for it to be executed. And once the will is executed, that will becomes public record. So if you had millions and millions of dollars, it will be public record that you had all that money and you passed it down to certain people. So you're going to be opening up your heirs and your estate to litigation. People are going to be targeting them to try and obtain that fortune you amassed across your life. But if you have a trust in place, that trust can be executed without ever going to probate. It can stay private and no one ever has to know about your fortune. So there's a few different flavors of trusts. So there are living trusts that are active across your life. And then there are testamentary trusts that only go into effect after you die. So in this video, we're going to be focusing in on living trusts. And specifically, there are two broad categories of living trusts: revocable trusts and irrevocable trusts. So what is the difference between a revocable trust and an irrevocable trust? So for a revocable trust, there's actually no legal separation between you and the trust. So if you are looking for that asset protection, you want to go with an irrevocable trust. But the reason you would set up a revocable trust is because it will prevent your estate from going into probate. So when you pass away, they will just use the instructions from your revocable trust to actually distribute your estate to your heirs. And it avoids probate court, and your estate never becomes public record, so your heirs never become targets of litigation. But the fact that revocable trusts are still technically part of your estate, they also don't provide the tax benefits that you would get from an irrevocable trust. So the other big thing with a revocable trust is that you can make changes at any time. So as your estate is growing and your asset composition is changing, you can move things in and out of the trust and make changes across your life. But an irrevocable trust, you cannot change what's in the trust. Once something goes into the trust, it is no longer part of your personal estate and it cannot be changed. But this permanent change to your estate of an irrevocable trust allows you to take advantage of some major tax benefits and gives you rock solid asset protection. Once the assets are passed into an irrevocable trust, they are no longer subject to creditors, lawsuits, or even bankruptcy proceedings. They are completely separate from your personal estate. The other cool thing about trust is that it lets you control how your assets will actually be distributed to your heirs. If you want your child to actually go to college before they get access to your wealth, you can put that in the trust. If you want them to start a business before they get access to your wealth, you can put that in the trust. You have complete control over what your heirs have to do to get access to your wealth. So we established that irrevocable trusts are the trusts that actually provide the biggest tax benefits and the best asset protection. But there's actually a ton of different varieties of irrevocable trusts.
But you are the Robin Hood of knowledge, because I see you giving this knowledge out, and do the rich people cringe and say, don't tell them that, Robin?
Yes. Don't tell people what you know.
Right.
Keep them poor.
So to better understand how trust can protect your assets, grow your wealth, and pass on your estate tax-free to your heirs, let's go through an example. So let's assume that you accumulated an estate that was worth $25 million across your working career. You have a primary residence that's worth $4 million. You own the property which your business is located, and that property is worth $6 million. You have stock holdings and your overall stock portfolio is worth $5 million. Then you have multiple real estate investment properties and that total is worth $8 million. And then in cash and other investments, you have about $2 million. Overall, your estate is worth $25 million. And your goal by using trust is to get your overall estate value less than the estate tax limit. And in 2024, the estate tax limit is $13.61 million. So if your overall estate is below that amount, then when you pass on your estate to your heirs, they will pay 0 estate taxes. So you could take your primary residence and put it in a qualified personal residence trust. So when you put it in this qualified personal residence trust, you could actually specify a 10-year term where you're allowed to continue living in that residence. So your overall estate that was $25 million, by moving your primary residence into this qualified personal residence trust, now we're down to $21 million. So the other cool thing about this is once you've transferred your primary residence into that trust, you've locked in the current value. So while you're continuing to live there for those 10 years, any appreciation that's occurring isn't impacting your personal estate. All that growth is occurring in the trust and is completely separate from you. You transferred your business property into an intentionally defective grantor trust. So between your primary residence and the business property, you've deducted $10 million from your personal estate. So we're getting a lot closer to that 13.61 estate tax line. So another cool feature about this trust for your business property is that you can elect to continue paying the property taxes on that property.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And you might be thinking, why on earth would I want to continue to pay property taxes on a property that's not part of my personal estate? So when you are paying the property taxes, that means that the trust doesn't have to pay those taxes. So any income that is being generated inside of the trust can stay inside of the trust and doesn't have to pay for those property taxes. So you are indirectly transferring money from your personal estate into the trust for your heirs and future generations. So if you put your stock portfolio into a grantor retained annuity trust, you can subtract that value from your estate, and any future growth of that stock portfolio is separate from your estate. But you can also set it up in a way where you're actually getting annuity payments from that grant to yourself. So you can still reap a benefit from those stock holdings, and you can remove that $5 million from your overall estate. So now we are under $10 million between your primary residence, your business property, and removing your stock. So with everything we've done already, we're below that estate tax line. But say you wanted to take it a step further, you could actually take your real estate investment portfolio valued at $8 million, and you could put it into a dynasty trust. So these dynasty trusts actually have exemptions for if you skip generations. So instead of passing on everything to your children, passing it on to your grandchildren. And there are exemptions that you can take advantage of, and you can literally set up your entire family line for generations and generations into the future. So you can take that $8 million investment property portfolio and you can put it in this dynasty trust. So your estate has come down an additional $8 million. So you're only left with that $2 million in cash and assorted investments. So the cool thing about this is that with the use of these trusts, we were able to take your $25 million estate and reduce it to a value of $2 million. All those assets got transferred into these various trusts, and their growth is going to get passed on to your heirs completely tax-free. And you still have millions of dollars left over to live off of, and you can specify distributions from this trust to yourself.
There's this gap between the rich and everybody else. And I know the game of the rich. You know, my rich dad taught me, you know it because you're the banker. The game the bankers and the rich play is different than what they teach you in school.
So all this effort to put all these assets into trusts, how much money did we actually save in estate taxes? So the estate tax rate in the United States is between 18 and 40%. So let's assume that you're going to have to pay 40% estate tax. So if we take that $25 million estate we started off with, and then we subtract 13.61 million, which is the estate tax line, and then we multiply that by 40%, you would have owed $4.5 million in estate tax. But by using this trust structure, your heirs will have to pay $0 in estate taxes. So instead of losing almost $5 million, they had all this growth and paid 0 taxes. So let's summarize some of the benefits that we got by using these trust structures. So we've allowed assets to be separated from our personal estate to save on estate taxes. All that growth is going to occur tax-free and be transferred to our heirs. We also have rock-solid asset protection. So if creditors, lawsuits, or bankruptcy hits, none of our assets will actually be disrupted by those activities. We've avoided our estate going through the court system and becoming public record like a will would do. And we allow ourselves to stay completely anonymous and our heirs to stay completely anonymous, so no one knows how much wealth you are transferring to future generations. And we've gained complete control over how those distributions will actually transfer to our heirs. And if our heirs do not meet our wishes, then our estate does not transfer. So what are the drawbacks? So the biggest drawback is these irrevocable trusts are permanent. Once you put something in an irrevocable trust, there's no taking it back. And you can't make the changes and rearrange after the fact. You have to be 100% sure this is what you want to do with your estate. The other drawback is that you're going to get increased scrutiny from the IRS. They look at these structures very, very closely because this is millions and sometimes billions of dollars that they are missing out on potential taxable revenue. So they're going to analyze every component of this structure to make sure everything is in compliance and that any taxes that would have been due are paid. And the biggest drawback from all of this is just the cost and complexity. Most people haven't solved the first two problems of income generation and asset accumulation to actually merit using these expensive and complex trust structures to protect their assets. So until you're flirting with going above that $13.61 million tax line, it's not even worth thinking about messing with a irrevocable trust. And most of the time you can get by with a simple will or revocable trust if your estate is not that large. So if you got some value out of my video today, please like and subscribe and share this video with someone else so this message can get to more and more people. And if you like today's video, you probably also like my buy, borrow, die strategy video where I lay out how the wealthy accumulate assets, borrow against them, and never pay any taxes. Thanks for tuning in, and I will catch you next time. Revocable trust and irrevocable. So a revocable. Let's try this whole thing again.